actually the pre-youth conference where this kickstarts the whole ICASA 2021 conference, which is supposed to begin from the 6th, that is tomorrow, till the 11th of December. But definitely, we cannot have a conference without the voice of the youth. We are very important and it's integral to the fight against HIV/AIDS, the fight in reaching the end of spreading the HIV/AIDS by 2030, to make sure that we as youth also have a voice and also put our fight against this call. So, the general theme for ICASA 2021 is Africa's AIDS response, the race to 2030. Evidence, scale up and accelerate. In that sense, we the youth also decided to develop our own theme for today, which talks about accelerating youth leadership, resilience and innovation towards 2030. And to begin today's program, we have very important people here, and that will be our hosts, South Africans, who will be joining us here to give us our key, we'll have our key speakers joining us up here. So to invite our first key speaker, I would like to ask, and with the help of the audience here, with a round of applause, I'd like you to help me invite a representative from the Youth Voice, Miss Nokolumbwa, to join us up here while she gives us our opening speech. Thank you very much.
Greetings. Greetings to all attending, both physically and visual. My name is Nokolumbwa. My son is Hlengwa. I'm 21 years old. I'm from eThekwini Metro. It is an honor for me today to stand before you in this conference as a young person living with HIV who has decided to make her own status known in order to inspire other young people to go and do HIV testing and know their own status, so that they should come positive and start their ARVs in order to adhere in the treatment. We as young people know what we want and we demand to recognize, to be afforded a safe space to raise our voice in decision-making structures. I'm encouraging each and every delegate to think about young people in their diversity when raising issues. We need to be inclusive of all youth. Let us make sure that we claim this space for the benefit of a young person who is a sex worker, a street kid, and a drug user, etc. We also need to advocate. We also need to advocate for easy accessibility of healthy services, simplify healthy-related policies and guidelines for all young people. Right now, AGYW are at a high risk of getting HIV. However, little has been done to ensure that AGYW own their prevention tools. Kids who were born by parents who were part of preventing mother-to-child transmission are teenagers today. Some are living with HIV. Nobody thinks to engage in those kids. However, some are enjoying their love life. I'm part of those people, of those young people who were born HIV, and nobody is trying to engage with us. We are just being ignored. We need to have programs that will be led by young people in our time. Without well-funded programs, young people will remain at a high risk of all diseases. COVID-19 lockdown messed up young people's lives as we were locked with abusers, and we were unable to collect our medication and get SRH services. As young people, we are calling for integrated healthy service where we will be getting in a healthy facility and be seen by one healthy care worker and be treated for TB, HIV, STI, contraceptive, and other minor illnesses This will ensure the confidentiality and reduce stigma and discrimination against young people. I thank you.
All right. Okay. Is it on? All right, so thank you very much. And as she's saying, this is a moment we are all including young people in the help to fight AIDS. So help me once again to introduce Miss HIV Ambassador South Africa, Miss Nell.
Greetings, fellow Africans and the international community. I am Marie Arabetri Nell, Miss HIV Ambassador South Africa. Allow me to register the same protocol which have been observed. Thank you to ICASA Youth Committee for granting me with this opportunity to share the voices of South African youth around HIV issues. HIV is a virus that attacks the body's immune system. If HIV is not treated, it can lead to AIDS, but with proper medical care, HIV can be controlled. People with HIV who get effective HIV treatment can live long and healthy lives. I encourage all to be responsible in how we live our lives. Abstinence is the first best choice. Being faithful in one's romantic relationship is second, and condomize for additional protection. We are grateful to the scientists, medical experts, governments, and all stakeholders, and most of all, the civil society forum, in the fight against HIV and AIDS. For their continuous research and support, I believe that we are at the verge of a breakthrough of getting a cure. To all the people of the world, especially those who are infected and affected by HIV and AIDS, there is power in speaking out in faith. When we speak out in faith, we can see the things that we want actually to come true. If we believe it, you will achieve it. If you call out your purpose, then so shall you reach it. When the going gets tough, I encourage you to continue to speak life and to remember the plans that the Creator has in store for you. To speak life is to show hope for better days, to speak positive into your life while going through challenges, to say that your God and your faith are stronger than your issues and your circumstances. Against all odds, against all issues and worries, your faith must persevere. The fire within you must burn brighter than the fire around you. We are in this together, and we must continue to show each other the love and support. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Nell. And it's very important, as she said, if we are, as youth, we need to fight the virus, we need to take up the steps. And she says, A, for abstinence, B, to be faithful, or if you can't be faithful, at least you should always use one form of protection, a condom. So thank you once again. So we want to also invite, we have here with us the Itequini Youth Sector Chairperson. We have Mr. Inkoshikona. Mr. Inkoshikona, can you join us here? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Gige ngapumala. We said this is a youth conference, isn't it? We need to kickstart it like that. Gige ngapumala. Ready? Inzimbi amageda. Gige ngapumala. Ngapumala.
Yamageda.
Ngapumala.
Inzimbi amageda.
Sendi Babel.
Yeah.
Sendi Babel. Okay. Well, thank you so much for the opportunity. The name is Kosikona Pungose. I am the youth sector chairperson in the hosting city, which is eThekwini, the city of Durban. One must appreciate the opportunity given by the ICASA Youth Pre-Conference organizers to allow the locals to actually share their voices as they represent different views and voices of young people within our diverse in the space of young people. Political principals, civil society organizations and members, government, partners and youth delegates, those that are present here and those that have joined us visual, I greet you all and all protocol observed. South Africa is a hub of the pandemic, especially the city where you are hosting the conference, that is the city of Durban. Meaning if we remove eThekwini from South Africa, the South African name will not be pronounced when we speak of HIV. That should get you thinking. That means this city has more people living with HIV in this country. In South Africa, I think, if I'm not mistaken, so that I'm not quoted wrong, 7+ million people live with HIV in the country, and most of those people are young people, meaning the adolescent girls, which are more at higher risk in our country. Now in South Africa, we have civil society forum, and within the forum we have 18 sectors, and within those 18 sectors we have a sector that is called youth sector. Youth sector, on its own by nature, it is diverse, because within our youth sector we do have young people that are living with HIV, we have young traditional leaders, young traditional healers, we have young men, young women, young professional workers. All 18 sectors are within the sector, and that's what makes this sector a key within the fight of the pandemic. And if the world is ignoring, especially youth-led organizations, the fight will not last, because we are the future and no one can stop us. We are the future. We are the future. No one can stop us. No one can stop us. So with that, as our previous speakers has already appreciated the space, as well as also our scientists, by providing different response in fighting the pandemic, especially amongst young people, there is an ask in that, especially to the community, international community and partners, those that are funded, to refocus their investment on the youth-led organizations, not just in South Africa, but in Africa as a whole. There's a number of young people at their respective communities who are doing very well in terms of fighting the pandemic and also readdressing the issues within their own communities, but they are not looked after. And these young people, because they do this with passion, not for money, they are doing this because they are passionate about it. They would like to see change in their communities, in their countries, but without proper support from the partners that have muscles to give them that investment to grow, to continue to do what they love as young people. For us to reach our vision of United Nations UN/AIDS, which is reached on by 2030, that no one should be born with HIV. No, we shouldn't have new infections of the virus, as well as also STIs. When we say 0 infections in the world, for us to reach that goal, to achieve that goal, support should be given to young people. And I'm very happy that the ICASA conference has seen the need of allowing young people to first meet and interact, and also shape the way on how the conference for the next 5 days will be actually ushered. So it's us young people that will be paving the way. It's us young people that our contribution will also allowing the different commission that will be taking place here, so that they fit into what we want to see as young people. Because we always say, there is nothing for us without us. If you are not involved, if you are not consulted, that thing is not for us. And it's high time that young people rise and hold our principals accountable. There's a lot of promises that have been made around Africa. Our principals are moving all over the world, sharing the good, policies that we have in our countries. But a good policy without a support of budget, that policy is as good as nothing, because it will never be implemented in that country. In South Africa, we have a very beautiful policy which is called the National Health Youth Policy, which speaks to the program, which is an intervention, which is called Adolescents and Youth Friendly Services at our clinics. And that is to allow young people to visit the clinic and get fast-tracked when they go to clinic without wasting time, without sitting on the bench and until they change their mind. So that we are able to accommodate them when they come to the clinic, from the security going straight to their consulting room where they'll see the nurse. Everything should be youthful. And that is one thing that we like to see, not only happening in South Africa, but being adopted all over the country, so that we showcase healthy and youthful access to medication on all young people in this country and also abroad. So those are things that we pride ourselves as youth sector. But we know that is not enough. I think one of our members here who spoke on behalf of young people living with HIV did mention that without support, and it's all about support, whatever that we speak when we go to commission, we hold them accountable because they have promised to support not just only our principals, but going straight up until to our World Health Organization. There's a number of promises that are made, and if we do not read and we do not hold them accountable, they will never do what they've promised to do for us as young people. So it's up to us as young people to make sure that those promises are kept and they are implemented. The 2021 World AIDS Day theme spoke about inequality. And it's inequality that we cannot ignore if we try to address the issues of HIV, especially the new infections. We are not equal at work, at our respective communities, the opportunities, and that also involves a diverse of our gender. And all of those things speaks to the reason why HIV still continues. Because people will ask, we've been hearing about HIV in and out, day and night, but we still get new infections. What is the problem? Our intervention not good enough? Maybe we need to also start asking ourselves as young people. Because we can't have a fight that we do not understand ourselves. What do we want to achieve? Do we understand our goal, our vision 2030? Do we understand that vision? And understanding that vision, are you doing your path at your own organization, in your own community, in your own country, to make sure that collectively we are trying our best to achieve those visions? It's something that we also need to make sure we as young people, we keep each other accountable, so that when we go out there to go and make our principals accountable for what they have promised, we also speak in one voice. Inequality amongst us as young people is very high, especially amongst adolescent girls and of marginalized communities, especially the LGBTQ+ community. For them to have access to health care, free health, to make sure it's free, quality health care, not free health care. It should be free, quality health care that young people have access, so that in the system of fighting HIV, people do have access to that quality, free health care, and also are able to fight the same fights that we do have in our own community in South Africa, in Malawi, in Zimbabwe, going all over, Accra, Ghana, in the whole of Africa. If we are not united as young people, then we are not moving forward. For us to achieve this and for us to win this war, for us to achieve the 2030 goal to end HIV in the world, we need to fight one war as young people, and we need to be united. We need to protect each other. Most of all, the world, especially those that have a lot of money, they should not ignore the youth voices on the ground to support their initiatives, so that they also grow and contribute to this pandemic as we try to end it. Thank you all. Before I move from here, We said this is a youth conference, right? But we all rise. And I would love also to ask those that are watching us from their respective countries, they can also rise in their chair if they don't mind. And we said we need to sing, and that is how we kickstart. In Africa we sing and we dance. And now this is not just Africa, but we are young as well, so we need to make sure that we do all those things. So can you join me then? Hilelo pasi. Hilelo pasi langa itelali baluguti. No ma. Young people, awulete siyenzayo, lete siyenzayo, awulete siyenzayo. Awulete siyenzayo, lete siyenzayo, awulete siyenzayo. Awuvuma moya wami, awuvume moya wami, awuvume moya wami. Manda, viva, viva young people, viva, viva, viva young people, viva, viva, viva Africans, viva, roar young lions, roar, roar young lions, roar. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm so excited. I'm loving the energy that is in the house, and I'm so happy to be part of this year's conference. So my name is Hazel Jojo. I'm a youth activist from Zimbabwe, and I am so passionate about sexual and reproductive health. And I cannot even extend my gratitude for being invited to actually also add up what I think young people can do in terms of ending pandemics, in terms of ending AIDS by 2030. So as I was looking at this year's theme and just noticing that there's so much to do with resilience, there's so much to do with innovation, I just find it so provocative and stimulating that indeed as young people, we have a part. We are not part of the problem, we are also part of the solution. So that is very, very important as we continue to talk about HIV, as we continue to talk about malaria or TB during this conference. Let us remember that we as young people will play a very crucial part in terms of contributing to the innovation, to the ideas, to the solution. So it's now time we shift the discourse. It's now time we change the narrative. It's now time we as young people actually localize, indigenize, and Africanize the different ideas, the different solutions that we have, and we need to take this, the key lessons from this conference beyond this conference. When we go back to our country, when the conference ends, we need to make sure that we also start our own initiatives that actually shows that indeed, when young people can, yes, they can. So I just want to thank the organizers of this event for actually recognizing and identifying that young people are very crucial. We actually make a large number of statistics in terms of population, especially in my country, over 60% are young people. But how many young people are innovative? How many young people are part of the key decision making? I always love the saying that says, when they don't invite you to the table, bring your own folding chair. So we need young people who are bringing in folding chairs when key decisions are being made about HIV, when key decisions are being made about public health aid. We need young people's voices. We need young people. So I'm also going to challenge all the young people that are part of this conference that as we are going to sit down down and start discussing that in as much as we are in the pandemic, we had COVID-19, we also have shadow pandemics such as sexual harassment. We are still talking about teenage pregnancy. We are still talking about gender-based violence. We are still talking about a lot of issues. So I'm telling you all this so that when we get time to sit down and young people start discussing, let us reflect how best can we make sure that we bring in the innovation, we bring in the creativity, we bring in the solution. So thank you so much, and over to you.
Thank you very much, Hazel Jojo. She has actually challenged us youth. She says that we shouldn't just sit, but we should find innovative ways. We should challenge ourselves. We should look in ourselves because we are young. We make up the highest number when it comes to the statistics. So as youth, Hazel Jojo is telling us that we should challenge ourselves. And it's also calling us that we've had an opportunity like this with the ICASA 2021. We should be part of it, and we should take a lot of things from it and do well with it. So once again, thank you, Hazel Jojo. I would like to invite Mr. Sidney Hushi from UNFPA, Jimmy Wilford from Say What, Saidi Brown, Dr. Remy Shawa, Hussein Mileli, and Molly Chan from The Fact, if they can join us up here.
Good day, everyone. My name is Sadie Brown. I am a young person born with HIV. I learned of my HIV status at the age of 14, and I use my various social media platforms to destigmatize HIV. I have taken part in the 2017 AIDS conference as a member of the youth plenary using my open letter to HIV. I'm also a part of the Youth Referencing Group for the Virology, HIV and Adolescent Workshop. I am going to be speaking about young youth populations and the needs, what we need from society.
So it's now good afternoon. Good afternoon to us. Good afternoon to listeners online, and good afternoon to you. My name is Jimmy Wilford, currently with the Say What, student and youth, working on the reproductive health exchange team. I am a former young person. I was once a young person, but I'm no longer a young person. I, however, work with young people in Zimbabwe, especially those who are in the tertiary institutions, not only in Zimbabwe, but some again who are in the region. In SADC countries. I'm going to speak about how we can explore the role of young people in ending AIDS by 2030. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So, Dr. Remy, what is the relevance of ESA community in school and out school when we are talking about the theme here? If you can talk to us a bit about that.
Thank you so much. So I think that the question of what the role of the ICASA commitment and comprehensive sexuality education is in reducing new infections, I think we have to look at it from the perspective that without the adequate knowledge for adolescents and young people to make informed decisions, to decide what they want for their lives, sexually, relationship-wise, in their communities, in their spaces, then there's no way that they can prevent HIV. What CSE does, and I would have loved to really just hear from the young people themselves on their understanding of comprehensive sexuality education. But what it does is that it empowers the receiver of that education with the skills, the knowledge, the values that they need to make decisions about their health and their well-being. The challenge that we are facing today, Mr. Moderator, is that there isn't a shared understanding among a lot of us, including those who are in the SRHR space, on what should be in the package of comprehensive sexuality education and why it's important for adolescents and young people. So I want to think of it in terms of this theory of change. That first of all, we need to raise awareness. Then the next step is to create knowledge. Then the next step is to engage somebody on changing their attitudes. So if I know how HIV is transmitted, if I know that you can have HIV and still live healthy, then my attitude changes about how I conduct myself and how I conduct relationships with others. Then the next part is, after the attitude has changed through comprehensive sexuality education, I now go to intention. What am I going to do about it? Do I decide that I'm going to protect myself? Do I decide I'm going to protect others? Do I decide I'm going to delay my sexual relationships? And then the next stage is action. Whatever decision that the young person made, that they stick to that decision because they have the knowledge, they have the skills to protect themselves, to live positively, if they're on treatment, to adhere to treatment. So all that as a package is what CSC tries to do. But often we get so excited when we hear CSC and we think, oh, let's talk about sex, when CSC is really broader than that. And it goes a little bit in detail to prepare the young person. And I think that that is a key, an essential key for preventing new infections. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Before I let you go again, there was something that you said which was profound, and it has to come with attitudinal change and the curriculum or within our upbringing. So what you propose could be the way forward, especially if this is supposed to push to or give us some sort of attitudinal change?
That's a very good question, because we 2019, knowledge levels for HIV, for instance, among adolescents and young people didn't increase exponentially as we had wanted under the ICASA commitment. So, in 2013, average in the region, the knowledge levels were about 36%, and then in 2020 they were at 40%. So just small shift, needle shift of 4%. And it's because of the issues that you've raised. But I think that we do have a framework in place to be able to provide CSC that is of good quality, that is age appropriate, that is culturally appropriate as well, through the education sector. So we know a lot of countries have already started integrating CSC in the curriculum. So that's one avenue. The other one is on the parents and community side. So we need more programs that target parents to equip them with the resources so that they can provide this information. If you ask randomly how many young people get information from their parents about sexuality or sexual health, the numbers are very low. And it's not because parents do not want to engage with their adolescents and young people on that issue, it's because they don't feel they're equipped enough to break that ice. And I think that a lot of civil societies need to start from there, by developing programs that target parents and caregivers to be able to communicate effectively to their adolescents and young people around the issues that they care about the most. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rennie. Thank you very much. All right, so I'm moving on to you, Mr. Sidney. We had a message from Ms. Beatrice Mutali, and she mentioned how UNFPA is constantly working with young people, and so we want to know, especially with you being part of
the UNFPA, young people form a core part of or are central to the work of the UNFPA across the world. And in Africa, we have 4 transformative results, or at least in the East and Southern Africa region, that guide our work. Those are around ending maternal death, ending unmet need for family planning, and then also ending violence against women and girls. And in the East and Southern Africa region, we have a 4th one, which is around ending HIV, the spread of HIV and AIDS. And in all of this, young people form a critical part of it. And so as part of our vision, we say that we want to ensure that every pregnancy is wanted, every childbirth is safe, and every young person achieves their full potential. Now, we see innovation as a catalyst within the UNFPA. And we say innovation is a catalyst because it helps us drive towards these transformative results that I have indicated. And we believe that young people can play a key role in getting us to achieve that. And so we started in the last year or so, we've developed a new strategy, which we call Innovation 2.0, which is guiding our work in innovation and how we're going to engage young people to achieve these transformative results that I have indicated. And the strategy aligns with our original plan, which finishes in 2025, the new one, which starts in 2022 and finishes in 2025, and then also the Sustainable Development Goals, which we are all striving to work towards. Now, there are two ways. One, ensuring that we mainstream innovation across our work, and then two, supporting to build an innovation ecosystem. And this strategy has 5 key principles that are guiding how we are going to continue to engage with young people, and then also supporting to build a favorable environment for young people to create solutions. So let me just backtrack a little bit and talk about what innovation means to us. And it's primarily being able to create transformational change with what you have now to build for the future tomorrow. Right, so we're looking at how we can do this, and we're looking at 5 main ways that we do this. 1, supporting to mainstream technology across how we work. 2, support innovation in low-income and non-digital communities, which is to support non-digital and non-tech-based innovation solutions that young people initiate themselves. So do you have a solution that contributes to any of our transformative results? How can we leverage that knowledge, that idea that you have, and support you to transform that idea into a viable product that can help achieve the transformative result that we have indicated? 3 is around building sustainable partnerships that can help to build an innovation ecosystem. And building an ecosystem is around ensuring that the different players, so your enablers, who would include investors, incubation and innovation hubs, financing firms, advisory firms, and the likes, are able to believe in what we do in sexual and reproductive health and rights of young people, and will continue to support ideas that can be transformed into viable products and solutions. And 4th, strengthening the capacity within our office in UNFPA, and then also ensuring that we are getting ahead of pandemics and other mega trends like what we have with COVID, so that we can leverage the power of young people to come up with creative solutions that can help us achieve all the objectives that we are looking to do. And there are a lot of opportunities that you can engage with as young people. One of which would be, if you have any idea, in next year, in 2022 and 2023, we're going to create an innovation platform that provides an end-to-end solution support for young people. So that if you have an idea that you think can contribute to ending HIV, a brilliant idea, you will be able to get on that platform and you will get that support that you need from the beginning to the end. We also create an opportunity for policy dialogue with, for instance, the African Union, with SADC and other political economic communities, that we can continue to support them to build policy around mainstreaming innovation. So as young advocates like you, your voice will play a very critical role in that regard. So 1, as creators of solutions. 2, joining the advocacy. 3, to build a strong network of innovators amongst us all. So can we begin to think around a community of HIV innovators, that a group of young people who come up with brilliant innovative ideas that can change the face of HIV, especially post-COVID? If you have any of these ideas, do we want to think around how we can form a network around this so that we support these groups of young people who are creating solutions that can help? So these 3, among others, are ways that we are looking at continuing to engage with young people. And young people like yourselves who are already in the movement and interested in supporting to create the change are one of our first points of call, and we are looking at continuing to engage with you as we are doing here through ICASA, so we can create the change that we are looking for in ending HIV on the continent. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sydney. But before you go again, yes, I have noticed personally that UNFPA is looking for a lot of Africa. How do you suggest as youth, what role can we also play in reaching out, because the UNFPA has quite a number of programs, quite a number of opportunities out there where it gives us the opportunity for young people to be innovative. How can we, the youth as well, reach out to some of these programs?
Right, so I listed some of the opportunities available for us as young people that we can engage. And we're going to be doing quite a lot of active communication around it, so you would know how to engage. So it would either be through the country offices from the different countries that you come, and then also it would be directly with a regional office, and we'll do quite a bit of communication around this. This, me being here, sharing these opportunities with you, is also one of the ways of engaging, and we're going to continue to talk to you. Good thing is that we have a lot of your contacts, and we are looking at how we are going to continue to communicate some of these opportunities with you. The bottom line is that young people form a core of the work that we do at the UNFPA, and so at every step of the way, we are going to be working with you to create the platforms that I have mentioned. So there are partner networks like AFRIAN, like the Youth Connect Africa, who largely have support from the SYP program to empower young people. And these programs will continue to build capacities of young people, and this information is all available again on the UNFPA website and how you can engage. I'm happy to provide some other information with you. And then also when we are done with this pre-conference, we will share as much information with you, because you are a viable network that we can already have access to, those in this room and then also those who are watching us online. We are going to continue to engage with you to create these solutions together, because we cannot do this. You are the change makers, and you have the potential to create change. And so it only makes sense that we continue to work with you.
So I spoke to a few young people who I also identify as young key populations, and I have Omran who says, our services are not mapped out. We don't know where to go and access the services we desire as young key populations. This makes it so difficult to access services, and it makes it feel like it's a nightmare. I also spoke to who also said that stigma and discrimination by healthcare providers affects us from trying to engage with the healthcare facilities as young key populations. And so there are some real-life examples of young people who are at risk. Young people who inject drugs in India, young risk behavior, and low use of harm reduction services. And there are young women who sell sex in Zimbabwe who also feel like there are barriers to them accessing structural resources. I also spoke to Tan in the Southeast Asia who said that when we want to access services such as hormones and surgery for transgender people, they are never available at healthcare facilities, which makes it quite difficult for us to be able to navigate through life as young key populations. How can we be supported as young key populations? We need the improvement of services that are provided to us with no attitude without being subjected to harm. We need the removal of laws that criminalize us. We need the reform age of consent, laws and policies. We need to be mentored and built to our capacity to be able to engage in decision making, and this includes funding our organizations. We need the increasing of funding for services that meet our needs. We need the developmentation of youth friendly services and also youth inclusive services. We need our services to be free because not everyone can afford them. The interventions that have been shown to work, there was the Young, Wild and Free. The research has found these interventions to work. There are community-based services and service providers who particularly cater to peer-to-care young people. There are easily accessible services online or in convenient locations with short waiting times. There are tailored services for young key population. There are free or substantiated services and commodities which are inclusive, and they assure us that our services or our consultations will be confidential. Things to remember from this presentation is that language matters. How you speak to us matters, and we would like to be treated with the same respect and dignity as everyone else. We need you to also respect our diversity. Young people, we come from different shapes, we come from different sizes, and one solution will not work for every one of us. Also make sure that the interventions that are implemented are gender sensitive, because we all know that gender doesn't just restrict us to male and female. You can find out more about the programs that we do and look out for the new WHO guidelines on key young populations. They are under review right now. Please see the UNA's 2021 report on young people, and please see the UNA's 2015 report on youth engagement. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. You raised very serious points, especially with concern with people living with HIV and also young key population. And you also addressed how, as the community, can help with that. I see a bit of a link here where we are talking about trying to have an attitudinal change, especially with what Dr. Remy has explored. But I also want to find out, you have been living with HIV for a while. How would you rate attitudinal change in, let's say, the past 10 years? Has there been a change, a difference? So tell us about that.
Okay, so there has been change. I always say that it is fair that we look back and we realize how far we've come, but while also recognizing the fact that there's still so much work to do. So there has been change. I am a queer young person who's living with HIV. Another thing that I've gotten to realize is that the inclusion of queer women who are living with HIV is not something that is easily accessible. So there are not enough resources, there are not enough information out there for queer people, for queer women who are living with HIV. And I think that is the direction we need to take in trying to make sure that there are these services. Healthcare facilities also need to be able to broaden SRHR services for young queer people. One of the young people we spoke to on the presentation also said that it makes the consultation process a nightmare because we don't know how to properly articulate what we need, and also healthcare workers also don't know how to cater to us because there are other issues of homophobia, issues of HIV stigma, and there are so many other things that need to be worked upon before we get to the main point where it's just like, I need healthcare facilities.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's always an opportunity to get first-hand experiences from persons living with HIV, so that at least we identify the fact that there are people who still live with HIV but are unable to come out because of all these issues you raised, and so it makes it very difficult for them to also access sexual and reproductive health interventions. So it's always a pleasure for persons like you to always share your experience, and we want to thank you for that. So thank you very much. So we are moving on to Mr. Jimmy Wilford, who says that he's not a youth anymore, but it's very important that he works with persons who are young and young at heart, and I think that he's someone who is young at heart. So Mr. Jimmy Wilford, working with the young, how do you think that we as young people can explore the roles that we are, or the responsibilities that we have in dealing with sexual and reproductive health rights and intervention, and also in the theme of today?
Okay, thanks very much. Indeed, I am a former youth, and I'm no longer a young person. And also, just a reminder to the young people that are online and those young people that are in here. You are not going to remain a young person forever, definitely. At some point, you are going to be a former young person. So in order for us to really explore how the young people can play a role in possibly ending AIDS by 2030, or addressing sexual and reproductive health challenges within the society, we need to have a common ground. We need to first understand who is this young person that we are referring to. If we don't understand that, it becomes a problem. Take, for instance, all the speakers spoke about young people being involved and young people being left out. But the question is, who is this young person that we are talking about? So I would challenge us that we get a consensus, starting with the definition of a young person and the involvement of a young person. If you look at it this way, according to the African Youth Charter, a young person is up to 35 years. That's African Youth Charter. African nations are part of the United Nations. United Nations definition of a young person is up to 24 years. When we are saying we want the involvement of young people, which group of young people are we talking about? Those up to 35 or those up to 24? That's where the problem is. And sadly, we've had situations whereby some people call themselves young people at heart. I want today, the 5th of December 2021, to challenge the notion that there is nothing called young at heart or youth at heart. Those of us who start calling themselves youth at heart, young at heart, they are in a state of denial. They are realizing that they did not utilize the spaces that was given to them when they were really young, like yourselves. If you don't utilize your space now, you are going to occupy the spaces of young people calling yourselves young at heart, youth at heart. But there is nothing like that. For us to ensure that we explore the involvement of young people, we explore the role that the young people can play in addressing the challenges that we are faced with around sexual and reproductive health, HIV and AIDS, so that we can eliminate the same by 2030. There is need for us to look at how are these young people involved in all the processes. Check, for instance, we are gathered here for the pre-conference. What has happened in the morning is a symptom of how this conference came about. The bringing together of this conference started in October. The pre-conference started in October 2021. But if you look at the bringing together of the ICASA conference, the 21st edition, started long back. Maybe it started in 2020. But the bringing of the young people started in October 2021. What does that tell you? It means that the young people, for us to be able to explore and to harness the opportunities that the young people can bring in order for us to realize the set agenda, the 2030 agenda, there is need for young people's involvement. If there is decoration or piecemeal involvement of the young people, surely we will not go anywhere else. I want to appreciate the ongoing notion around the youth board, youth advisory boards. There is this phenomenon that has been emerging of youth advisory boards. I want to appreciate that. We need also to understand who is behind that notion, and are the young people really involved in the making of decisions in those youth advisory boards. Possibly some of us who are in here physically are part of those youth advisory boards, and some online might be part of those youth advisory boards. The question is, do you understand what you are supposed to be doing there as a young person, so that we can further explore the role that can be played by you to address the challenge that we are faced now in order for us to achieve the Agenda 2030. Yes, of course, there is COVID-19. Sadly, when decisions were being made to ensure that we hold the 21st ICASA edition within the confines of the COVID-19 protocols, young people were the last people to be thought of, meaning that they were being eliminated, that we don't need to have the free conference of young people. So that is also a challenge that we need to look at in order for us to effectively address this, the involvement of young people. The young people's needs are evolving. So for those that call themselves young at heart, they are no longer in touch with what is really happening amongst the young people. So in order for us to harness the skills and opportunities that are brought by the real young people of the day, there is need to involve the real young people so that they can even bring on board the challenges that they are faced. The previous speaker spoke about how she was born HIV positive and the challenges that are faced by her and colleagues. Leaving out individuals like yourself results in us missing on opportunities on how best to address the development agendas that are set for 2030. At the same time, I want also to emphasize, Mr. Moderator, this is a shared responsibility between the technical persons and the young people. As a young person, when you are given an opportunity, what do you do with that opportunity? Sydney at one point shared with me that you can give skills to anyone else, but there is something that you might not give to a particular person in terms of that person being involved in processes, the issue of passion, the issue of hunger for success. You can be given a platform, but if you don't utilize that particular platform, surely you always complain that you've been left out, and as a result, you end up even occupying spaces that you could have utilized previously. For those that attended the ICASA 2019, assuming that was the previous ICASA, the 20th edition, that was in Rwanda. If you were 21 then, now you are 22. Now you are 23 thereabout. If you were 23 then, now you are around 25. So during the 22nd edition of ICASA, you will be around 27 thereabout. According to the UN regulations, you won't be a young person anymore. Ask yourself, how have you utilized the opportunities that have been given to you when you are still a young person? Like I said, I'm no longer a young person. Over to you, Moderator.
Thank you very much this morning, and I want to just raise this to find out what you think. We understand that there's a bit of difference when it comes to the definition of youth, especially when we are talking about the AU definition as well as the UN definition. So as African youth, how do you think is the simplest way to take charge? And what do you suggest? Which definition do you suggest we use? The UN definition or the AU definition?
In conclusion to your question, I'm not going to suggest any definition that can be used. But I can say that UN is made up of is United Nations, and it's made up of various nations. AU is made up of African nations, and African nations are part of AU. So before the African Youth Charter was put to policy, which some other African countries have not yet ratified, there was already the United Nations definition of a young person. So I'm sure there was a reason why the African nations decided to put up the age of a young person to 35 years. Putting this age, the age issue aside, there is need, Mr. Moderator, that the young person amongst ourselves should be able to utilize every opportunity and to appreciate that they are not going to remain young forever. That's what's key. You are not going to remain young forever. And you cannot continue taking up spaces that are also made for those who are children right now. Very soon there will be young people, there will be youth, then you need also to give them space for them to bring on board the challenges that they are facing. So in other words, what we are simply saying is those young people today, those who are in here today, they should consider making use of these opportunities such that they are able to be taken on board, and when taken on board, they should be taken seriously. If the president of International AIDS Association, or the host of ICASA were here, a Society for AIDS in Africa, if the president was here, I was going to ask him, what is the average age of the board members of ICASA? How many young people were in that board? That again should be able to be addressed. You young people are supposed again to speak to them so that you can be involved in that particular board. And when you are involved in that particular board, just go there and contribute meaningfully. Don't be selfish when you are taken on board at that level. So it's important for young people to be also part of the ICASA board. You constitute the majority of the population. We talk about the youth board. What are we making use? How are we making use of that? I'm sure when elections are being done under the ICASA board, we don't even vote for yourselves. Why? And later on, you go around seizing every opportunity where you are given a mic that you are not being involved. Yet when you are given an opportunity does not come so open. So in other words, Mr. Moderator, there is something that can be done by the youth to liberate themselves in regard to the involvement. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jimmy. Thank you very much. So I think essentially we are being asked that as youth we have limited time. And as much as we have limited time, I think that we also have a role to play. And whilst playing that role, we should also understand that we also have people behind us who are coming. So even though we are still youthful playing that role, we should also empower those who are coming up so that there's a continuous change, so that when we actually also become old, we still don't sit there and hold the positions that are meant for those who are youthful. So thank you very much, Mr. Jimmy, once again. So if the technical team can help us connect with Molly Charlie. Yes.
Progressive sexuality education, and we're going to link young people to services. Now, because it came to an end in 2020, countries have been negotiating for a renewed commitment that will align with the SDGs and will go until 2030. So tomorrow there will be a session here, and it is on the agenda as well for the conference, where ministers will reconvene to recommit to the Eastern and Southern African commitment. But this time, it's an Eastern and Southern African commitment on education, health, and well-being for adolescents and young people. So broadening it beyond CSC and SRH services, looking at mental health and disabilities and so forth. What can young people do? Right now, you can get hold of your leaders if you know your leaders and you have access to them, or if there are countries that you work with, if there are young people in the communities, to really urge them that you want the ministers of education, of health, of gender, and of youth to really recommit to the commitment. And why we are now asking that this broadens beyond health and education is because the responsibility of young people and adolescents is beyond ministries of health and education. So for instance, in the school setting, how do we make sure that a young person, a learner who's living with HIV, is given time and opportunity to be on treatment, to access treatment? You know, if they don't want to reveal that they are living with HIV and they don't trust the people around them, how do we create that space for them? What is the responsibility of the social services who are not in the school for young people that are not in school to ensure that they have opportunities to those services? So that is why we're pushing for all these ministries that work with young people to come together tomorrow. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I think we've been able to connect to the chat now. So, yes, the technical team should switch the feed to Molly Chan. And give more the chance.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. Today, I'm so excited to be here sometime, and I'm here all the work that Africa is doing right now. So I'm so excited to talk about the role of young people on the political declaration. So before that I begin, I believe it's important to note that the young population accounts for 33% of the world population, according to United Nations. Listening to this data has only prompted one thought in my mind. So why is that the media portrays us as the future? We analyze this data. When we analyze this data, we are not truly representing the future. We are representing the present. We are the today. The voice of youth has always been present in generational struggles, but times are changing as problems occur or are made visible until now through technologies. Youth are a population that is invisible to adult centers, ideas that do not allow for the expression of our needs. This is arise and is lived at various levels, beginning with the familial nucleus, moving on the communities, the government, our countries and regions, and the various global situations that we are unfortunately experiencing. We are connected population that is attentive to every situation that occurs in the world, of course, thanks to the social media, which allow us to be aware of various struggles and, of course, be inspired, because we want to ensure a dignified today, a more just world, a more equitable world, a world without inequalities. When it comes to HIV response, young people are vulnerable population because we are most exposed to the prejudice, the stigma associated with the comprehensive sexual education, and laws that prohibit the enjoyment of sexual autonomy. Those circumstances limit our access to information, to access to a service that's provided by young people, and of course to our ability to end inequalities. It is important and it's time to demonstrate that the young people can make significant difference in the world. We can either generate or be a part of the struggle by using innovation, having a mentor, and being creative. There are approximately 37.7 million people living with HIV worldwide, with 400,000 are under the age of 30 years. Maybe you may think that aren't many, but the reality is that the number of cases in young population is growing every year. And seeing how it's growing year after year is concerning. This indicates that young people must be a key population in order to meet UNAIDS 95 targets. The various intersectionalities that the young people living with or affected by HIV face allow us to analyze the needs to ensure the young people's sexual and reproductive health and rights. There are various advocacy action at various levels, including high levels. The presence of young people in high-level meetings or the elaboration of political declaration will allow us to demonstrate the needs we face as young people. So, we understand about the COVID-19 pandemic. It doesn't have borders. It doesn't show difference. So that means we must act. And it's time to ensure that no one is left behind. No matter our color, no matter where we're from, no matter our sex, no matter our sexual orientation, no matter who we are. It is time for youth voice to be here because we are fighting to achieve a better world. We want to ensure that children in our future have a more dignified life. So that means that we are not fighting for today. We are fighting for guarantee a future for a future generation. And of course that we want a more dignified life, our life free of inequality, stigma, and discrimination through the resonance that we are making right now. So today I just want to invite you, young men, young women, and non-minority people. I invite you to join force and achieve a world that guarantees to end inequalities, end AIDS, and of course, end pandemics. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very, very much. It's a pleasure to have you all the way, and we appreciate the heartwarming messages you are giving us. And we need to understand that it's very important, as all the speakers have said, to just give the rest of the panelists, that is Sydney, Saidi, and then Jimmy, the opportunity to just give a closing remark, and then we can move on to the next session. So Jimmy, Sydney.
Right, thank you. And it's such a pleasure to be here. For me, I think that the power of innovation and the power of young people together is what we need to change the world, basically. We have a lot of amazing stories of young people who have done amazing work around the Eastern Southern Africa region, adopting innovation approaches during COVID. For example, in Uganda, young people came together to find ways to ensure that reproductive health commodities, including condoms, could get to young people when they needed them. Other young people in Mozambique are using mobile phones and artificial intelligence to connect pregnant women to reproductive health care services. Our own regional hub has the SYP Chumi app, which is built for young people to access information on reproductive health and rights, and also connecting them to services. All of these platforms that I've talked about were led and designed by young people. And so putting these two groups together is such a force to reckon with. And for me, you should think of yourselves as change makers, and the UNFPA is forever available for young people to achieve their full potential. You're here today, and your being here means that you're going to continue to believe in the vision of ending HIV and halting and ending the spread of HIV on our continent. And so continue to be change makers, and the UNFPA will support you in that endeavor. Thank you very much for being such a great audience, those who are here in the room with us, and those who are also watching us online. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Go ahead.
I would just like to say to everyone on here that thank you so much for being here with us. Thank you so much to the young people who are here. I think the onus is upon us to keep occupying these spaces and to keep on speaking out on the things that would benefit us. We are more than just our stories, and we deserve to be included in conversations and in decisions that have to do with us. Nothing that is done for us should not be done without us. So we should come together and just try to fight inequalities, fight all these social ills, especially fighting the things that affect us, with us included in the rooms and in the conversations. Thank you so much for this.
Thank you very much, Jimmy.
Just 3 items. One, is a reminder that you are not going to remain a young person forever. You are not going to remain a youth forever. And secondly, as young people, you need to dismiss the notion of youth at heart or young person at heart. There is nothing like that. You need to dismiss that notion and occupy your spaces. And lastly, thirdly, as young people, you need to organize yourselves and be considered to be given at least one slot within the ICASA executive board so that you can accelerate the pace at which we can achieve the goals set for 2030.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Talia Gondo, and I am a member of a very vibrant national coordinating committee under Say What. And today I'm going to be focusing on exploring the realities of COVID-19 in young people. So young people were less affected clinically by COVID-19 than adults, but they were impacted by the pandemic's indirect effects, right? Which then leads me to a quote that says that the biggest threat is that the attention has been focused only on COVID-19 patients. So what about the rest of the people that needed access to sexual reproductive health? So young people were affected in many different ways. The first one being access to abortion services and family planning. And this was highly limited because of so many reasons. There was no transport, either private or public, clinics were closed, and there was restricted movement. And even if you could move, the youth couldn't afford to get access to those abortion services because of the economic challenges that were being faced in various countries. And there was also the fear of actually being affected by COVID-19 whilst seeking that sexual reproductive health. The second one being that there's been increased gender-based violence, and this has also led to increased stigmatization. Violence increased due to the lockdown because there was restriction of movement, people were supposed to be confined in certain places, and at the end of the day, this also affected the mental health, not only of that relationship, but of everyone who's in that family member. So, that means that at the end of the day, we had more suicides from children whose mental health was affected. And we also saw a rise in new forms of violence, for example, cyber violence. Moving on to the third one, we also see to it that poverty came in to influence decisions, especially those of students in universities, whereby you were not able to go back home and had to fend for yourself. You engage in activities like sexual activities whereby you then sleep with people for money so that you find means of survival. All these are some of the things that the youth were facing during the COVID-19. But that's not the only thing that the youth were facing. We see to it that I'm an advocate for gender equality, and because of COVID-19, everything was now confined technologically in mobile spaces. So that meant that everyone had an opportunity to participate, whether male or female. And we also had a promotion of safe and healthy use of mobile technology, which is also an advantage. But it then brought me to the question whereby I asked myself, what can we do as the youth? We see that we are facing all these detrimental effects. Are we going to do something about it? So I came up with a few policies which I believe will work. The first one is that I noticed that there was the lack of political will and support whereby sexual and reproductive health was concerned. So I figured that if we cannot beat the government that confines us from moving, why don't we be the government? Why can't we have the government coming in to be key players in these organizations like Say What, organizations like the Pact? So if they are part of us, if they understand our goal of having more informed youths who are able to make better sexual reproductive health decisions, then we'll get to the goal where we want, that goal that says ending AIDS by 2030. And also, we could reach out to key populations. Of course, technology has been amazing, and we think that everyone is getting access to some of these awareness programs that we're hosting. But what about that one child who's in a rural space, that one child who doesn't even know how to use that technology? Where then do you expect them to get that knowledge that we're trying to reach out to those people? So let's also make a plan to also make sure that we include everyone. As has been stated, we shouldn't leave anyone behind. This is a fight for all of us, and if we're going to win, then everyone has to be included. Also, it has been estimated that For every 6 months of significant health disruption, it's going to result in 47 million women of low and middle income countries going without contraceptions. It's going to lead to an additional 7 million unwanted pregnancies, and the number of maternal deaths is going to increase. Are we going to sit and watch as young girls and women die in the world? So, if women cannot go and get the services that they want, why can't service providers go to those people? If I dial and say today I want access to family planning, then as service providers it is our duty to make sure that we find means upon which we make those services available to those who need them. Let's make sure that the government is going to be for the people, by the people, to the people. So I'll end this in saying that as the global community that has come together for the ICASA 2021 conference, we are together in solidarity to survive this pandemic. We lay the foundation for a more resilient, gender-equal society and a healthier, more prosperous future for everyone. Thank you.
Can we have the slide on? All right, thank you very much. My name is Aaron Sande, as she has said, and I'm the Executive Director of African Network of Adolescents and Young Persons Development. I'm also a member of Global From Board, and as well as other youth platforms across the globe, region, and at the national level. So very quickly, what you can see on the screen there is talking about a social aid fund project which we did in Nigeria. You know, when COVID-19 came, one of the major issues was how can we ensure the gains that HIV have made over the year will not be shattered, and how can we ensure that the lives and social and economical needs of adolescents and young people can still be protected within this pandemic. So let's go to the next slide, please. Next slide. Okay, so if you are here with me, you can see it. Adolescents and young people, especially young people living with HIV, are not the place of the pandemic. However, the rate has been among its greatest casualties. And while they have fortunately been saved from many of the immediate impact of COVID-19, the emergencies will profoundly affect their mental, physical well-being. It is generally reported that adolescents and young people, especially young people living with HIV, face extreme effects during the crisis, which you and I can attest to that. The principal challenge of AYP HIV since the lockdown is access to life-saving antiretroviral medication. Next is on the barrier of adolescents, it's the fear of visiting health facilities, because as at then a lot of misconceptions were flying, and then we have challenges of ensuring they go to the facilities. Additionally, you can also see that some of them have issues around transporting themselves to that same facility, and also access to sexual and reproductive health and rights services and commodities such as sanitary pads. Next slide, please. So what happened? UNH Geneva and Global Network of Young People Living with HIV, Y Plus Global, led a process of what we call the Social Aid Fund project. It was a pilot in Nigeria and also Malawi. So African Network of Adolescents and Young Persons actually implemented the Nigerian aspect of it, and it was implemented across 11 states in the country from December 2020 to March 2021. The project has two main purposes. That's the first phase. One was to conduct a situation analysis of impact of COVID amongst adolescents and young people living with HIV and young key populations. And second was to provide social aid support to these vulnerable adolescents and young diverse population groups. Next slide, please. So the situation analysis was conducted from December to January and gathered response from the AYP HIV, including young key populations living with HIV in 6 states covering the 6 geopolitical zones in Nigeria, which we have the state, namely Kaduna State, which I'm only proud to be coming from there. We also have Benue, we have Lagos, we have Rivers, Anambra, and Taraba State. So the finding actually revealed that due to lockdown and uncertainties surrounding COVID, mental health issues, fear, anxiety increased among adolescents and young people with underlying health conditions, including HIV. There were lack of transportation to access healthcare, as I initially said, and resisted access to life-saving antiretroviral medication. Job losses, difficulty in feeding, inability to afford education fees, and limited access to SRHR services. So through the social aid support, we piloted about 260 persons applied for this support, but actually 91 adolescents and young people, which have to do with adolescent girls and young women, young people living with HIV, young key populations across the 11 states were able to be reached. And what are some of the things that they were reached out with? One is food. We have to buy the nutritional supplements and get it across to them. COVID PPEs, the face masks and sanitizer, sanitary pads, also for the adolescent girls. Moderate cash for business, for individuals that lost their business, we gave them moderate cash, and also transport to health facility for them to be able to obtain ART or PrEP or CDPO. Then school fees, some also were supported with school fees. Next slide, please. So what is forthcoming? So the success of the previous one actually yielded much, and again, from the situation analysis conducted, we realized that priority on the list for these population groups is economic empowerment. You and I can believe that whether or not these people cannot access have transport to go to facility, whether they will not be able to afford buying sanitary pad, whether they will not be able to buy food and eat, pay their school fees, all these things lies down to economic empowerment. So that was the focus of the second phase, which we are about to comment. So UNAID is also supporting Y Plus Global, and Y Plus Global is still working with ANIT in Nigeria, and this time around we are trying to also see how we extend this to 6 states from December this year to April 2022. So we will also, one of the aims as well is also to conduct a situation analysis of the first impact, the first one, what was the impact of the first project, and also how does this second one also have impact on the young people. Then secondly is to also economically empower them with skills. So we have about 6 young persons that each will be supported with $600 each, and that covers their enrollment into different skills, whether it is graphic design, shoemaking, web design, all the relevant skills that apply to young people. So we are already, the implementation process is already on the go. And so, but one of the things we are hoping is that at the end of this phase, we will be able to say definitely we have empowered some young people, but that number is a little bit strong. So this is some of the places I see global government coming in, bilateral, multilateral donors coming in to see how they can support Y Plus Global, to see how initiatives like this can be scaled up, because Y Plus is only piloting in Nigeria and Malawi. And we have this burden of COVID across West and Central Africa, East and Southern Africa, North and MENA region. So let's see how we can get more support across the global for Y Plus to see also how we can get this scale up. So I think I'm going to stay here. This is the few I have to share with you people. And I hope if there's any question, I'll be welcome to answer it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Aaron.
Is my slide up yet? I'm Economic Tour Young, and the party is a youth-led organization, a coalition of youth-led organization at global space, working within the sexual reproductive health and rights space. And today, I think it's really important that we are actually talking about the political declaration on AIDS 2021, what young people should know. Next slide, please. So quickly, I just want to give you a background of what the high-level meeting on AIDS 2021 was all about. So it took place between 8 to 10 June 2021, and I mean this is the high level where they review progress in reducing the impact of HIV. And I mean since the last UNAIDS General High Level meeting on AIDS, in 2016, this was an opportunity to actually adopt a new one based on changes that has occurred over the years. And in this June 2021, a new political declaration on AIDS was adopted. Next slide, please. So I just want to give you a scenario of what the previous high-level meetings and the focus on youth was. So in 2016, we could see that the youth were not really well recognized in the previous HLMs. We also found out that the political declaration itself failed to bring the needed visibility to key populations most affected in different regions. And there was a resistance from member states on aligned civil society engagement, and you understand the importance of civil society engagement and youth-led responses in the HIV response. Next slide, please. So, just a brief about how the process was. There was an adoption of modalities resolution that was around 23rd February 2021. Then there was a convening of task force by the UNAIDS that was done in 22nd March. Then there was a multi-stakeholder hearing. We also had one of the panelists, two of the panelists here who were part of that multi-stakeholder hearing, Aaron and Molly Chan. And we then had the UN Secretary General's report. Then there was a global and regional country consultation. So from the pact, we had a global consultation with youth-led organizations that are working with the diverse population of young people, that's young people populations, young sexual minorities, young people living with HIV. And we were able to know what the priorities was at the grassroots level, because we don't see the reason why we proceed in our HQs, and we can't really find out. We just assume what the problem is for this vulnerable group of young people. So we thought it was really, really important that we hear from the grassroots, and leveraging on networks like Y Plus Youth Lead and ANID, APIN, we were able to get a number of responses on what the priorities was, and we were able to use that to develop a statement of priorities. This was done after the regional and country consultation. Then we had a high-level meeting on 8th, and that was between the 8th and 10th of June 2021. Next slide, please. So, I mean, I've been talking about the HLM, but I mean, why is it important? Why is it important for youth engagement? Why is it important for you to actually engage in the HLM? And why is it important in the HLM, in the HIV response? So first of all, I think what comes out strongly for me is that I think it's an opportunity for youth and for member states to actually review progress on matters that are of global importance and reaffirm commitments to tackling AIDS. It is an important time for youth to actually channel their needs, amplify their voices around some certain issues that the governments are not prioritizing, and let them know that this is the way forward. Because it is really important to know that there's strength and there's positivity in youth-led responses in the HIV response. And secondly, another opportunity for youth, also another opportunity for young people to actively engage and influence the global decision-making spaces, to ensure that their needs and priorities are considered in the future of the HIV response. So, I mean, from the statement of the priorities, we used that as an advocacy tool amongst the coalition of organizations were able to mobilize, and this statement of priorities was published and pushed through the task force, Aaron and Molly. And I'll be telling you a bit about some of the gains from our engagement. Next slide. So yes, I'm just giving you a report back. Next slide again. So, I mean, for 2021, you could see that, I think one thing came out strongly was that young people were actually ready to be part of the process. Young people were ready to actually amplify their voice. Young people, we could see young people mobilizing other peers. We could see young people volunteering to actually come up to draft the statement of priorities, because they actually understood that, oh, this is actually an opportunity for them to actually let the member states know that this is the way to go. These are our real issues. So don't sit in your offices and actually assume what the problem is. So we could see that, and some of the gains from the high-level 2021 was the fact that the political declaration actually aligns with the current UNA strategy, and the targets on youth, some of the targets on youth were kept, I wouldn't say all. There was a commitment to actually support community-led efforts and meaningful youth engagement as of, I mean, this was not, this didn't actually reflect in previous HLM, but we could see that this actually came out strongly for the 2021 political declaration. Also, the political declaration prioritized the combination HIV prevention approach, and actually acknowledges the holistic nature of HIV, and there's a specified funding. Next slide, please. So, I mean, there are gains, you know, when you say advocacy, you have your small wins, and you have those lessons that you need to go back and speak with your team and re-strategize on how to actually address those challenges that you actually faced. So, yes, we had some gains, and we also had some losses. Yes, and we saw that the watered down targets and non-efforts specifically around key population. Yes, the TRIPS clauses was also an issue. No mention of young key populations, and I mean, we all understand why we need to start, if we're engaging, that's why we're talking about data disaggregation. We want to know what services are being given to the young person who is a sex worker, or the young person or the young sexual minority within the ages of 15 to 24, or within the ages of 15 to 29. So, I mean, and also no mention of climate change, no mention of CSE. CSE is still a big issue in most African countries. Like in Nigeria, you see that it's not really comprehensive. They try to have this abstinence only, I call it abstinence only CSE, because they try to take out some words based on their religious and cultural bias, and I mean, it's also an issue. Next slide. Without taking much of your time, I just want to let you know what we need to do, what we must do. First of all, we need to align our efforts. We saw the power and the strength of actually coming together as youth-led networks, as youth leaders, to actually push for change. And we can see a number of persons that were part of this process. We had ATC, we had Y Plus Global, we had Youth Coalition, we had Youth Stop AIDS, Gendit, Youth Lead, Youth Rise, you know. We all came together. We saw the power and the strength in actually coming together to actually push for change. We need to actually hold government accountable through youth-led accountability. I mean, at the country level. So the political declaration is a living document now. So what they've committed to doing this. What is your role as a youth leader or as a youth activist in actually using that political declaration and holding them accountable by looking, okay, you said you are going to provide specified funding for young people living with HIV, or you are going to provide specified funding for ARVs availability. However, when you go to facilities using doing findings, data collection, you will find out that these things are not really available. So based on that, you can use that evidence to go back to the government and be like, oh yes, you signed up to this. So, but why are you not keeping to your promise? I think it's really, really important. Evidence-based advocacy is really, really important. And we need to actually focus elements of the global AIDS strategy. When I mean strong political leadership, adequate funding, community-led responses, which is key, right-based approaches, and science. Next slide, please. So, I mean, the question that keeps coming to my mind is, what are you going to do next? What are we going to do next? This is the youth pre-conference. We have so many youth leaders here. we have youth-led networks, we have representatives of organizations who work with youths here. So you know this. What are you going to do next? You are going back to your countries. The political declaration on AIDS is a living document. Most of the member countries signed up to this. What are you going to do next? Yes, we believe we are the future, but I mean, what are the steps that we need to actually take to build on this momentum? I think I'll stop here for now and allow my colleagues to take over. Thank you. And over.
I don't know if the presentation is ready.
Hello everyone, confirm you can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, and oh wow, my presentation is already up. Thank you so much, technical team. Before I get into my presentation, let me just tell you about myself. My name is Chido Debra Mawide. I'm a young person at heart, and by age, I'm 22 years old. I am a peer educator affiliated with Say What. I am also a advocate. I speak largely on issues to do with SRH. I am an online presenter for Say What as well. So this topic speaks to me most because I'm also a youth activist, and I know the power that we have as young people in leading change. So it's really an honor to talk about why it's important for young people to be at the forefront so that we can reach our 2030 goal. Next slide. So to kickstart, maybe we need to have an understanding of what exactly youth activism is, and these are a few definitions that I found online, but the first one speaks to me most, where these are activities that young people participate in with the explicit goal of seeking social change by advocating for issues of relevance and concern. Now, we're not just young people going about talking about different issues that have no impact whatsoever. We are seeking social change. So we are doing this for a reason. We are not just up and about looking for prestige or anything like that, but we're doing this for social change, and we are speaking on issues that are of relevance, issues that really concern different people and different communities. And this activism consists of efforts that promote, efforts that embed and direct or intervene in social, political, and economical reforms. Going back to what I said first, that it's important for us to realize that we're not just doing it for the sake of doing it, we're seeking social change. That's why we need to be at the forefront. Speak of a future where we don't have anything to do with planning for that future. Activism is important for that matter. Next slide, please. So, jumping right into the importance of youth activism, young people, like I mentioned, we control the future. But I cannot foresee a future where I don't have a scenario of how to plan for it. So this inclusivity allows us to be a part of the planning process so that when we get to the future, we know we would have done the groundwork from the beginning, from the present. We can't just speak of a future when there's no present. So it's really important for activism to be out there for young people to be placed in circumstances that allow us to learn of the situations that are on the ground and what we need to address when we get to that future. So when we experience these scenarios firsthand, we then have an upper hand in terms of addressing these situations, other than just having to hear from other people, taking a backseat and being told that this and this is what's happening. When you're a youth advocate, you then stand at the forefront and you're like, I know that this and this is happening because I have first-hand information, I have first-hand scenarios, I have first-hand scenarios that allow me to have an appreciation of the situation before I can tackle the situation. And also activism exposes young people to different young people who don't think like that. You know, we are a diverse number of people. I'll take an example of this pre-youth conference. There are people from South Africa, Zimbabwe, Nigeria, all countries at we think alike in certain issues, but we don't think alike in certain issues. So the impact that another young person has as an activist is powerful, because I also have a different input, and together we bring about different solutions to an ongoing problem that we can actually tackle for us to have a brighter future. Next slide, please. As young people, we have a sense of purpose that allows us to do this vision. I mentioned before, we don't just do things for the sake of doing them. We know why we want to do them, because the future is in our hands. This is the future that we will live in. So it's important for us to advocate for what it is that we want in that particular future that we want to live in. We shape our own future. And therefore, advocating for certain issues, being active, being activists as young people, presents us with an opportunity to network with like-minded individuals. This helps us to even develop more confidence in what it is that we're fighting. Let's take an example of the goal that we are talking about in this pre-conference, the goal for 2030, zero infections, right? A world where HIV and AIDS is history. We want to be confident in that future, and therefore we will work for it now. We can't work for it when we don't have the platform to do it, when we don't have the advantage of being at the forefront to work for that particular future. So therefore, being an activist and as a young person allows you to be able to express what it is that you look forward to seeing being done in light of this particular issue that we're tackling. And youth activism is equal to social change, as I mentioned before. We can accomplish this, young people learning to communicate effectively, to collaborate with individuals from different backgrounds for specific causes, and we also compromise with the greater good of this world. We're not just meeting up so that we can just converse in terms of, hey, how are you, how is home, how's school, and everything like that. We just sit down and we say, you know what, we are here at the ICASA conference because we want to talk about businesses and that. How can we go about it? How have you been doing it in your country? How have you been doing it in your country? And what can be done to develop certain issues towards ending HIV and AIDS once and for all? And we sit down, we talk about it. We have also the input of the elderly, as the fight has been going on since way before. And then still going on. So their input, our input together, it can result in a huge change, a huge impact altogether. Next slide. Young people consistently put effort in bringing about the need to change. Youth activism is therefore really important because it works consistency. Young people don't give up easy. I myself am a young person, and I will tell you, I don't give up easy. I see a brighter future where definitely HIV and AIDS can become history, but I can't do it alone. That consistency and teamwork is what gets us somewhere. And I love what UNAIDS indicated, that over the years, youth activists demanded, like we literally demanded action on the epidemic, and successfully advocated for radical changes to the clinical trials and drug approval processes. So it's not the same anymore as it was 40 years ago. We continue to talk about this. We continue to stamp on it as young people, and being listened to as young people gives us the drive to continue fighting against this pandemic, to continue bringing forward solutions that we think can impact this fight. And youth activism is important because it allows for young people to look at life from a responsible perspective. It's different from when young people are just living reckless lives with no sense of purpose, with no direction whatsoever. Being an activist, I for one will testify as I am a youth activist, I have a sense of direction because I know what I'm fighting. I know why I'm here. I'm not just here for you guys to see my face and hear my voice, but I'm here to tell you that we can make it out here. It's not a goal that is in our fantasies, or it's not a goal that can't be reached. We can reach a world where 2030 we're saying, oh my gosh, there used to be such a thing as HIV and AIDS. But now it's history because we fought the good fight and we won. So that responsibility and that sense of belonging for us as young people allows us to venture on this journey of life with a certain responsibility that we have and not just living reckless lives altogether. The next slide, please. So for this slide, I titled Youth Activism is check. Our theme is accelerating youth leadership, resilience, and innovation towards 2030. Now, the change that we want to see is more youth inclusion. We can't talk of accelerating youth leadership where there isn't any youth leadership. So giving the young people more platforms for them to exhibit this leadership, for them to exhibit this resilience and input the innovation that they have is the change that we want. We can't talk about young people taking the forefront without young people actually being involved in the whole planning process, in the policy making, in the sourcing of solutions. We can't have a conversation without young people being given a seat at the table. And even if we're not given a seat at the table, young people, I encourage you to bring your own chair. Because the change will not happen with you sitting at the back and voting. That's not how it works. You have to get up, take your gear, and join in the fight. And the important thing is you actually involve yourself, because no one is going to push you to involve yourself in the fight. You have to be involved willingly, and you have to know why you're doing it. Young people have a drive to advocate for change in society because we are directly affected in terms of issues that we face in different societies. We look at HIV and AIDS, and we have different statistics that show us that as young people aged 15 to 24, we account for 35% of new HIV infections worldwide. And for this reason in particular, we have to be involved because the future that we want is ours, and we are directly affected. So we need to jump into that fight. We need to be involved because this includes us. It's not just a fight for the elderly. They have been in the fight before.
Sorry to
join the fight along the way, and we continue to fight.
Just wanted to remind you about our time. Please try to wind up your presentation. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, so these are my final points, where youth activism is important because the future is in our hands. But we can't plan for a future that doesn't have our involvement in it. Young people, we are resilient, yes, we are innovative, yes, but if we're not included in planning processes, in policies, and all those kind of things, we can't talk about anything to do with youth without youth. So youth activism is an important ingredient in the fight against HIV and AIDS on reaching the goal that we want to reach. So yeah, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. Can you please clap for her? That was a very, very rich. Aaron Sandy talked about, economic empowerment, and he really emphasized this. And he's doing a very tremendous work in Nigeria, Kaduna. And I have a question for you, Aaron. Yes, I know you talked about, Y Plus Global being your biggest or your major funder, but how best can we economically empower these young people without donor funding? Is it really possible, and will it be a reality? And then to our lovely and beautiful panelist who is available in the room, Tadiwa, I have a question for you. You highlighted the different challenges young people have gone through, through this COVID pandemic, and you raised a couple of number of policies and solutions, basically. How applicable are they? Last question. I don't have lots of questions for Ekadem, but I just appreciation. And then my last question to Chido. Chido, there is a difference between advocacy and activism. Can you please tell us just a brief, differentiation between advocacy, being an advocate, and being an activist, because the two are totally different. Thank you. Please answer my questions in 2 minutes and give us your closing remarks. We'll save the best for the last. We'll save you for the last since we are watching you. Then we have our online panelists to please, I hope you're still on. Are they still on?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right, just to answer your question very easily, so one of the things we are doing for this social, the economic empowerment approach is that we have what we call the selection committee. So the selection committee is made up of both national government agencies, whether from Federal Ministry of Health, Youth and Sport, Education, Women Affairs, and we have observers like the UN system. So the essence of having this government agency and line ministry leading the process of even identifying the beneficiaries and also being in the picture of what is happening is because sustainability is very, very key. So because we are moving from a time where we continue to look after donors to finance the needs of our own immediate population, but rather to look at, we are gradually embracing sustainability as something that should continue. So definitely, our idea and our plans going forward is to see that some of these government people, they will look at, okay, with small money we've been able to do small, they will also see how to raise more money to say, okay, let's get this thing pilot. But my own point of view is this: we're empowering these young people. It will be my desire to see that after the whole 6 months or 3 months or 4 months of depending on their skills and the startup path we give them to set them at the path of being empowered, they also try to also get other young people so that we have a cycle and we are able to see how to go through getting more young people that are not dependent. So to give my closing remarks, I sincerely want to appreciate the colleagues from the ICASA team and also everyone that have contributed to make this conference a success. However, my belief is that as young people, we are gradually seeing the reality that the burden is in us, and unless we begin to take ownership and be at the front line to ensure that whatever it is we are being championing to address it, we'll continue to be behind. So I will appreciate, just like Chido has said, we need more activism, we need more advocates, and we need more leaders. We also want to see many of you engaging in program design, implementation, resource mobilization, and also partner and donor relation. We need that so that we'll be able to get an Africa that is free of AIDS, stigma, and discrimination by 2030. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Aaron Sandy. Chido, did you hear my question? Are you online?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Okay, yes, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you for the question, and I feel like it's a really relevant question. Advocacy, in my own understanding, is support or recommendation of a particular cause or policy. And I think in a way it works hand in glove with activism, because you have to be active for something that you are in support of. So when we're practicing activism, we are advocating for social change. We are joining in, rallying in on supporting certain policies and even implementing and drafting even certain policies that are around a particular change that we're expecting in society, or changes that we're expecting in communities to see and benefit from. So I think the two are different, but they work hand in glove, especially when it comes to the fight for social change. And in my closing remarks, I think I'll just stamp on the importance of young people being involved in such platforms. And I would like to thank ICASA for giving me and all the other young people the platform to be able to talk about such pertinent issues and be involved in the processes that are to do with social change. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Chido. And one thing I've really learned from your last remarks, according to my question, is that activism, it inquires us to act. When you write down that word activism, it has the word act. So if you want change, you have to do what? Be an activist by acting, by doing something. Thank you so much, Chido. Let's please give another round of applause. Ekanya, please give us your closing remarks.
Okay, thank you, Gloria. My closing remarks would be, it's more like a question. The political declaration on AIDS, it's out there now. Have you read it? Have you read about the provisions in the declaration? Do you know about it? These are questions you need to start asking yourself. I know a number of organizations, we have an advocacy toolkit and an HLF guide that was developed in collaboration with other youth-led networks and organizations. We are looking at stepping this down, and hopefully we will be able to share some of these opportunities. But the question is, if you want to get things done, you need to actually use evidence to actually hold governments accountable. We all know how the space is. And just to add to what the last speaker just said about activism and advocacy, I think I'll just say activism is more about making people listen. But advocacy is fighting the relevant stakeholders to listen to other people's problems. So, thank you very much for inviting me as a speaker. I look forward to the other sessions. Thank you and over.
Okay, thank you so much, Ekonem. Though we kind of lost you where you started, giving your view on activism. But I don't know if you can get 1 second to repeat for us. Just 1 second. What you said about activism and advocacy.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
So I said activism is about making people listen, but advocacy is like working on identifying solutions and inviting relevant.
Okay, I think he has some network challenges.
It's parties to listen.
Okay, thank you so much. Please, you can mute him. Let's have a closing remarks from Tadiwa.
The youth of today have so much knowledge. And it's something that we all know that knowledge is power. So this then makes everything that I said applicable, because as a youth, I know that I have the right to plan my family, I have the right to get access to any SRH service. And because I know that, I'm not going to stand and watch someone deprive me of the right that I have. Making that applicable, because as youth, we are informed of how these things are supposed to go. But I'll then add on to say that as the youth, if we don't help ourselves, then no one else is going to help us. So it's time for us to stand up and start pushing for what we are advocating for. We can't expect someone like Jimmy to place a policy that is going to help me. As he said, he's no longer young at heart. I am the one who's young at heart. There's no future without a history. The theme is clearly stating that youth resilience, youth leadership, resilience, and innovation towards 2030. So we're not just going to wake up and see the 2030 of a healthier generation. It starts now. What are you as an individual going to do when you go back to your country? What policy are you going to impose? So I think that all this is applicable only if we join hands in acting and not just speaking. The time starts now. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Oh.
And I would like to also add that there is nothing new under the sun. Technology is there, but what are we doing with that technology in terms of sexual reproductive health? All we have to do is find innovative ways of making sure that everyone benefits from that. There's Dow and Deliver for food. Why can't we have Dow and Deliver for condoms so that we have people engaging in safe sex activities? That's the kind of innovation we need to see. We need to think outside the box and make strategies that help in terms of sexual reproductive health. Thank you.
Thank you, Doreen. Good afternoon, everyone. Hi, good afternoon. Hi, how are you? My name is Joyce Amondi Uma. I come from Kenya, a town called Machakos. And I work with the Global Network of Young People Living with HIV, commonly known as Y+ Global, as an influence and engagement advisor. And I love Durban. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joyce. We all love Durban. If you love Durban, clap once. Can Durban adapt all of us? Anyway, we shall discuss that later. So, Tatenda, please.
Thank you. My name is Tatenda Songore. I'm the Executive Director for Youth Advocates. We work in East and Southern Africa to advance youth voices and amplify their rights in grassroots communities. We work with various youth-led CSOs and youth-serving organizations to ensure young people are at the center of policy and also laws that advance development within the East and Southern Africa region. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And my virtual panelist, who is Fatahia Sumeila. I don't know whether she's looking.
Hello.
Oh.
Hello. Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Please, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, good afternoon. My name is Fatahia Sumeila, and I am a program assistant with the Adolescent Sexual and Reproductive Health Unit of UNFPA Ghana Country Office. It is a pleasure to be here. I am passionate about young people and SRHR, so nice to meet everyone, even though I'm far away.
Thank you so much for joining us this lovely afternoon. So I am going to start with Tatenda, and my question to you is about addressing the age of consent related to barriers to end inequalities. Our World AIDS Day theme this year was End Inequalities and AIDS. So how do we address the age of consent related barriers to end inequalities when it comes to access to essential SRH and HIV services for all adolescents?
Thank you very much, Madam. Maybe the gentleman can also be beaming a slide that I just did from our program within the region. One of the things that I realized, I think I've been in the youth sector since I was 16 years old when I started a grassroots youth-led organization in the response to HIV. Growing up as a young person, I was born with a mother who was impregnated when she was around 14 years old. My mother eventually became a young woman selling sex, and she eventually died when she was 33 years. And understanding the fact that when you're a young person, you make some decisions that have got consequences, but when you're making decisions, there are circumstances that you go through that will make you make those decisions. The story of my mother inspired me to work and build a movement within East and Southern Africa to bring together the voices of young women, young men, to address inequities that expose them and put them at risk of HIV. The fact that my mother grew up in a situation of dire poverty, and she could not afford to just pay for her school fees. She had to work and do some household chores to take care of the basic needs, meant that the more she was a very beautiful lady, the more she was exposed to different men who would come with gifts in exchange for sex, and sometimes she perceived it was love. It shows you that the circumstances that expose a lot of adolescent girls today to being sexually active, to eventually become teenage mothers, to be married. Those circumstances, if they are not addressed, will not be able to address inequities across the region and not be able to end AIDS. Within Southern Africa region, we have over 6 million parents who have migrated to other countries and left a lot of adolescents, girls and boys without any parent or guardian. When those adolescents are looking for services, sexual and reproductive health services, most of them will not be able to access them because they are turned away by healthcare providers because they want them to bring a parent or a guardian. Over 70% of the perpetrators of rape and gender-based violence, they are close or intimate. Something that touched my heart when I was in Zambia. I met with the National AIDS Council General Director in Lusaka. When I spoke to her about the issue of age of consent, she said to me, when you're talking about age of consent, what are you talking about really? Because there is no one in the world who has got the power to consent to a healthcare service to any human being. If it's a health issue, it means everyone has got the right to access healthcare services, no matter what age they are. Even a baby has got the right to access healthcare services. So what's so special about the issue of consent to sexual reproductive health services that we want to make it a big issue? What we now know is today's generation is different from yesterday's generation. Today's generation is mature early, they are becoming sexually active early, most of them, they no longer have their parent, their guardian, they migrate to other countries. So in order for us to ensure universal access to healthcare services, we need to address barriers associated with age and ensure universal access to healthcare services, including HIV services. To just wind up my presentation, I want to give a word to today's generation of young people and say, if young people are not thinking of uniting to build movements within the region, our lack of unity is going to cost us when you want to make better decisions tomorrow. Let me bring it back again. You see, when our elders were building movements within Africa to fight for liberation of Africa, they were building movements when they are around 14, 15, 20, 25. They were fighting to liberate Africa. Today, this generation of today is fighting for a different cause. We're fighting for economic freedom. We're fighting for equitable access to healthcare services. We're fighting for a world where climate change is recognized and we ensure that we fight it for the next generation to preserve the future of our generation. So if you are not united, if you are not building movements, if you are not creating evidence to fight for our causes, it means you are just going to make noise as a young person. Come to a big conference like this to look for an opportunity for photo shoots, but when you're looking at the impact that you make, it's minimal than if you are working with other young people. So my word of advice, network with other young people. Don't be afraid to be part of a movement. Don't be afraid to be part of a bigger impact. If you want to go far, go with a team. If you want to move faster, you can move alone, but you will not really make an impact that you need than if you're part of a team. Thank you.
So, because she's 12, she definitely was not given. And the nurse actually told her, go back home and stop talking about matters, sexual related or sexual related health services. So she said, if you don't give me these contraceptives, I'm going to get pregnant. She told the nurse that. The nurse said, I know you will get pregnant, I just say. So later on, she got pregnant. She came back to the facility and told them she wants to terminate the baby. Still, she was denied that service because it's illegal in my country, and she's 12. So she, as much as it's illegal, does not mean that it is unavailable. So she found her own means, terminated the child, but bled to death as well. So that is what the barrier associated to age is doing when it comes to the inequalities of SRHR and HIV. So I think that we need to make a change. We need to make an impact, and we definitely need to address it as a key issue that is facing us, because the young people of this generation, they're different. They're built differently, and it's time we understand them from that perspective. So thank you so much, Tatenda, and thank you for the lovely presentation. So my second question goes to Fatahia, who is joining us virtually. I'm not sure whether she's... Okay, I go to Joyce. Okay, Joyce. So my question goes to you. What are the realities of youth networks and movement working towards the financial resilience in the fight to end AIDS?
The backbone of any of the critical work that the young people or the youth networks are doing and that they have been doing. So since morning, during this pre-conference, we have talked about the crucial role that youth networks continue to play in the HIV response. We have had people talk about the good work that has been done. We had Aaron and Ikanem talk about the Uproot project and the social aid project and many other projects that have been put in place as part of the HIV response. But all these need money. So when you ask about the realities, I am inclined to share about something that I relate with at a personal level. So I may be biased and speak mostly about the resilience, the financial resilience at Y+ Global, which is an environment that I'm quite familiar with. I'll start with the usual, the challenges that we as a network, we have been experiencing in terms of resource mobilization. And I believe that most youth networks in this room, the youth networks and youth organizations, are also going to relate with this because it has been a global outcry in terms of resource mobilization for youth networks. We have had very stringent measures or criteria that have been put in place by specific donors in order for people to be able to access their funding. We find that most donors have very many requirements that youth networks that are just either starting out or that have been in existence for a while do not have this capacity. Remember, all of these, for you to be able to put all these documents in place, for you to be able to have, for example, audited accounts, you must have money in that account, and you must have money to be able to pay those auditors. And most of the youth networks are actually functioning without the essential financial resources. The other thing is we have, of course, as I've talked about, the issue of due diligence. Most of the youth networks have the idea but do not have the capacity to handle heavy resources. So most of the time these finances just end up getting lost. We also have the issue of shifting focus. I believe most of the panelists who spoke before me also mentioned that the focus of the world right now is shifting to COVID, which is like the new kid on the block, leaving behind some of the issues that we had raised as priorities, some of the issues that young people living with HIV, young population continue to endure or to encounter in their daily lives. So I feel that we keep having this issue of shifting focus. We sometimes talk about pediatrics. After exhausting that conversation, we move on to the young people. After exhausting that conversation, we move on to the key and vulnerable population, but without necessarily addressing something. So we keep tackling one epidemic and leaving behind another. And as we speak right now, there's been a lot of focus that is shifting from our issues as young people, the barriers to access, the inequalities that we encounter when seeking services, and now we are talking about COVID-19. So most networks that are working with young people, that are working in the HIV response, have been forced to incorporate COVID-19 programming within their mandate. And this sometimes is also one of the issues that we have to do as per the donor. So if the donor says you take COVID-19, even if we have not met our mandate, we have not met our targets, we have to take it up. The other issue is we, at some point, and this is not, all I'm speaking about is not just necessarily from whiteness, sometimes we have to compete with established networks who have all these structures, who have all these resources, human resources. They have excellent people doing their proposals for them. While the young people, we try our level best with our little experience and our knowledge to be able to get this grant. Sometimes we are not a match for them. The other thing is projects come to an end. Right now it's the end of the year, and a lot of projects are coming to an end, and some of them are not subject to renewal. So in reality, in terms of challenges, those are some of the things that we have been facing and are being like sort of like threats to the programming that is being coordinated by youth networks and young people. So coming from a network of young people living with HIV, we have also had these challenges for a while, and Y Plus Global has been in existence for the longest time. But it's not until recently that we are able to stand on our own, because we have donors and funders who have believed in our capacity, who have believed in our capability and our structures to be able to give us some funds for us to be able to run. So allow me to also speak about what are some of the best practices, or rather how do we mitigate the issues that I've just mentioned, the structures that have been put in place by the donors, and some of these are actually non-negotiable. We have found our niche. The Global Network of Young People Living with HIV is a network of young people living with HIV. We walk the talk. We are governed by a board of young people living with HIV. So it is a niche that even when we try to extend, of course we address also the issues of key and vulnerable populations, because this is a population that is continuously left out and has HIV as an entry point. So this is one of the ways we've been able to at least get access to funding. We also have, we have also managed to do like collective bids with like-minded organizations. We have done collective proposals with other networks. We're currently having grants like in projects like the 4 Youth program, which is not just one network, but 4 different global networks, and Y Plus Global is one of them. This makes it easier for our systems to be strengthened and for the donors to have trust in us. We also look into the issue of filling gaps. We are addressing the issues. One of the main goals and the visions of Y Plus is to improve the quality of life of young people living with HIV. And young people living with HIV experience very many intersectionalities, and these are gaps that people do not speak to. Addressing or improving the quality of life of people living with HIV and young people in specific, it's more than the pill. We all know that pill alone cannot make you virally suppressed. We all know that pill alone is not a definition of an improved quality of life. It's just one thing. So Y Plus, in its entirety, look into the gaps and some of the issues that are affecting young people living with HIV to ensure that we improve the quality of life. And you might be surprised, but this is how we are actually able to get funding. For example, right now, we are coordinating, or we are starting a project called YouthWise, which is a project that is supported by AIDS funds. And this project is one that looks into the self-care of the young person living with HIV. And this is one of the model projects that actually, as a person living with HIV, as a young person living with HIV, I feel at the center of programming. We also have, of course, like I said, we walk the talk. Y+ Global is solely a network of young people living with HIV. It is led by young people living with HIV. And we take pride in the fact that we are the custodians. We are custodians of the ethical and meaningful engagement of young people in various structures and spaces. Again, we strategically position ourselves. And I would love, I think one of the panelists will also talk about the issue of movement building. And we are in that business. Currently, Y+ Global is also working with UNFPA SRO office to conduct, to implement a project known as Secure the Future project, which is a project that aims at having the youth networks in the East and Southern African region to build a movement to support the ESA ministerial commitment, which is actually going to be endorsed, I think, tomorrow. So those are some of the strategic engagements that we have been working on that increase our visibility as a network and also ensure that, or show donors that we are capable of implementing, because we always say that young people have the capacity and the young people want to be involved from the program design to the implementation to everything up to the evaluation level. Like, we don't want to be engaged at the end to rubber stamp processes, and that is what we have been living through. And finally, Y+ Global has been, as we say, we are a network, and we work closely with the youth networks in the networks of young people living with HIV in countries. Like, for example, we work, we engage like very keenly with specific networks. And as we have mentioned, or as I had mentioned previously, that funding is an issue. So Y+ sources for funding and supports the country networks to receive this funding, because we understand that it is very critical that youth networks get funding for them to continue to do their crucial work that they do. So Y+ also supports the structures and the capacity strengthening of these country networks, and this improves the structures and strengthens the structures within these country networks, which most of the times do not qualify for funding. And up to now, as we speak, some of them are getting funded by other donors, including the UN family. So as I speak now, we have very many projects running at Y+. Of course, some of them coming to an end and some of them are not that big, but they're a step in the right direction. We have UNFPA, we have UNICEF, we have very many projects that are running. We have Frontline Aid with the Ready Plus project. And some of these projects, if you join us in the next few days, you will get to hear more about these projects and probably talk about how we can collaborate as youth networks, because I believe that being here, we are representatives of specific youth networks. I hope I answered the question.
Yes, Joyce, you have answered my questions. Have you come to the end?
Sorry?
Have you come to the end of your answers?
Yes, I have come to the end of my answers. Thank you.
So thank you so much, Joyce, and I truly,
the one who's clap for
please clap for Joyce. I want to ask Tatenda, are there specific donor organizations that you're working with?
So currently Youth Advocate is working with HIPO's SRHR Fund for our regional campaign on age of consent. We are also working with UNICEF for youth engagement in the COVID response that is in Zimbabwe. We also have got a very strong digital service that we are launching with the SADC HIV AIDS Fund. We are launching a 393 youth helpline that is going to be working within the SADC countries, and currently we're piloting it in Zimbabwe, Botswana.
Thank you so much, Tatenda, and that is really lovely, and I commend the donors for supporting youth-led networks. So, but I
thank you to all the donors and partners who support youth networks, either at local level, regional, country level, global level, because that donor funding, that relief, that support goes a long way in improving the quality of life of young people globally. And in the spirit of partnerships,
And bearing in mind that this is the first session of very many to come in the course of the week, I'd like to take advantage of this opportunity, Doreen, and just say some of the sessions that people should look out for. So we are having a session on the role of the young people in enacting the renewed ICASA commitment on Thursday the 9th from 8:45 to 9:30. And I hope to see you there so that we can move forward in the spirit of partnership. And also, as I conclude, I'd like to also bring to your attention that in collaboration with UNESCO and Global Network of People Living with HIV, GNP+, we were able to spearhead a process to develop a recommendations brief called Positive Learning, which is a recommendations brief to support learners living with HIV and to meet their needs in the education settings. Again, you can find that one, that particular recommendation brief either on the UNESCO website, the Y+ Global website, or GNP+ website. I just had to mention that because it's a project that is quite dear to me, and I wish I had such level of support when I was in the learning system as a young person living with HIV. And finally, my parting shot is let's continue to work together, and in the course of this week, I am counting on all of us to work together to improve the quality of life for young people living with HIV and for young people globally. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think my other panelists said summed very well what I think would recommend. Just to emphasize again that the power of us as young people is in our networks. We need to take seriously the opportunities that we get as young people, that whoever you see could be part of a bigger chain to what you want to achieve as a young person. And being part of a network as you grow up means that as you grow older, those networks will be critical to some of the greatest problems that you'll be solving. So if you look at most of the young people who are going to be successful 10 years from now, they've got an idea. They're looking for opportunity to light it up and to make it a reality while they're young. Don't be afraid to experiment. Don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to be part of a bigger movement, because opportunities for young people are everywhere, but very few will be successful because they are determined to implement, they are determined to be part of a movement. This is your time to shine. This is your opportunity to make an impact. This is the opportunity to leave a legacy for the future generations. We are all in this together. Let's walk the talk. Let's build a movement. Thank you.